And we are officially live. Hey everybody, my name is Wes.
My name is Matt.
And today we're talking about the database.
The foundation.
This is the thing that controls pretty much everything else in ChurchTrac.
Yeah, like I keep telling people in like the Zoom workshops I do with churches, everything ties back to this.
Yes.
So this has to be established in order for you to maintain everything else.
It does. So if this is your first MasterClass, welcome to the MasterClass. And today we're talking really just only about church database and how that relates to really just kind of everything.
Yeah.
This is a very interesting take. When we were preparing for this, Matt, it almost seemed like there was more that wasn't even software related we were bringing into this than ever before.
Well, we didn't want to just do okay, so here's how you add somebody new and here's how you send a text message.
Yeah.
We wanted to actually do the deep dive into almost like a 30,000 foot view of what a church database can do and how to take the most advantage of it.
Yeah. Now, before we dive into all the things, just a few things for you all. First and foremost, if you're like me, you like to learn by watching YouTube videos. We have so many YouTube videos. Go check them out on our YouTube channel. You can learn how to do everything from adding people in your database to going deep into automations and so much more. And then we also have a really great resource, our Facebook group. Matt, tell them about it.
I'm actually dropping links into the chat right now for the YouTube channel and the Facebook group. So definitely click on those links in the chat so that you can have them when we're done with this. But the Facebook group is a group of other people that use ChurchTrac all over the world that would love to answer any questions that you have. It's a wonderful community. We love the Facebook group. So go ahead, if you're already using ChurchTrac, ask to join. We would love to see you there.
And when you're using the software, I just want to really reinforce this help button. This is like your best friend. Anytime you need help in ChurchTrac, click that help button on the top right corner of your screen. And you can go to show all help topics or just simply ask us a question. But on our main user guide, here you can search anything. And if you're new to ChurchTrac, definitely select the new to ChurchTrac section to learn support ticket, schedule a phone call with our team. There is no shortage of support when it comes to getting the help you need when you need it. So be sure to leverage that.
Love it.
All right, Matt, let's dive in. We have this outline I have. I wish I would have printed it out because then I could have like just shook it and you could hear. Yeah, it was just, there's so much to cover.
Yeah.
And I guess really to start everything off, we need to talk about what is a church database in its most simplest.
Like when that question is asked, it seems like it's intuitive, but it's actually worth articulating. So we'll dive into that.
Yeah, so I have it articulated here and I'm already logged in, but I'm going to read off what I wrote. Then I'm going to actually give you like what it is in reference to ChurchTrac. So a church database is a digital system designed to store, manage, and organize information related to a church's members, activities, and operations. Okay. It typically includes details like a member, contact information, attendance records, Matt, giving history, event participation, helping church leaders streamline administration and enhance engagement.
Okay, that was a lot.
Yeah, that was ChatGPT that gave that.
Okay, well, give me like the condensed one sentence, here's what it is.
It's where you manage your church and communicate with your people.
So much easier. Why didn't you lead with that?
I should have. So I want to show off real quick. So we're talking about church database, but obviously in ChurchTrac we don't have a screen called church database, but we have the people screen. Mm-hmm. And that really is your database. This is where you're managing so many things that have to do with your people.
This is the hub.
This is where you're communicating. And just a really quick overview, because this is a MasterClass. We're going deep, but I want to just do a quick overview. Whenever you select that people screen here, the first tab you have is your people tab, and this really is in essence your church database, where you can select a person and see all their information, things like their email address, phone number. Now just forewarning, this is all fake information. I'm not showing a real church's data. That'd be crazy. But I can see things like recording notes on a person or their family. I can see what groups a person is a part of. I can see giving history if I have access to that, if I'm privy to it. I can even start background checks and order background checks for people. There's so much going on in here. And then going beyond that, I mean, we have the messaging tab here where I can go and start sending mass emails to my church, mass voice messages, text messages, all that is in here. We have the reports. This is where we can generate all of our different reports of all of our different things we're needing information about. I mean, Matt, this is everything from just a basic list of your individuals to generating a report for mailing labels. I mean, there's a lot.
Yeah, member directories even. There is a lot there.
I mean, birthday reports is a pretty popular one. Just getting a list of people that are, have their birth month in March, whatever it may be. And then the other thing worth noting here, because we're going to be talking about this setup tab some today. This setup tab is where you manage all of your groups in ChurchTrac. The smart list, this is where we're creating a list of our people that meet specific criteria. But then you have custom reports, you have user-defined fields, and we're going to talk more about these things as we go. And then you can even have note types where you're creating different types of notes depending on what you're wanting to record on your people and stuff. But okay, that is the quick overview of just like what's going on here. But I want to get back to the database, and I guess before we start talking about like what makes a good database, I think it's good to talk about the pitfalls.
Okay. Just because we see a lot of church accounts and a lot of church databases. I think you even sat down with Lori and talked to her about this.
I did. So Lori, she's our support manager, and through the course of working with thousands of churches over a decade, Lori kind of gave me just a glimpse into what she sees in church databases and the things that she sees that churches kind of, I guess for lack of intensive purposes, they mess up. I'm going to just shoot off a list of just quick things here. So out of all the thousands of church databases Lori has seen, she told me, here's some of the common pitfalls. Having a database filled with people that are not alive, have moved, attended another church, or haven't even attended their church in years. That's like one big pitfall. Another one is having only one person with access to the database. Just one person.
Only one person.
Very common. Another pitfall is having too many people with complete access to the database.
Too many cooks in the kitchen.
Having a database filled with old data. That's a really big pitfall. I've seen that a lot. Having a database filled with too much data.
Yeah, super cluttered.
Yeah. And then another one is having a database filled with hardly any data at all, which kind of defeats the purpose of
at that point, you're wondering, why do you even have this?
Now, the biggest pitfall, though, is this idea, and listen up, I'm looking at you, the idea that a church database is just for insert blank. Let me insert the blanks for you. For example, this is just our online directory. This is just where we track our donors.
Or this is just where we store contact info.
Yes, this is just where I record notes on people. And I think when it comes to a church database, this just word that we keep saying, it's a 4-letter word.
It's another 4-letter word, like all the ones your mama told you not to say.
And when it comes to ministry, it's a really bad word, because the truth is a church database, it's not just this for this. No, a church database, it's a tool for many purposes.
It's almost all encompassing.
It is. Just to really quick, your church database, it is our online directory. So it's where I'm storing all the information for our people. There's information. There's my happy person. It's where we're wanting to track information for our donors. So we've got all the information of how much people are giving and everything. We're wanting to track that. But on top of that, it's where we're wanting to maybe have the phone number of people so we can actually reach out to them and, I don't know, maybe touch base with them if they just were in the hospital or something like that, being able to get in touch. It's also a place where we can have the email address of people or their home address. There's so many things. Like, I could sit here and just list off all these things. It really is ultimately the hub of everything in our church. And I'm sitting here trying to write hub and I just messed up with it. It's the hub. And when it comes to churches and how they're trying to organize their database, Matt, it ultimately comes back to churches. They have all these wants, the things they want to record, and then they have all the whys. Like, why are you wanting to record this thing? And in between those, the intersection, it's the need. That's ultimately, because all the wants and the whys, the intersection of that is the needs of what you actually need to record on your church.
Yeah. Not all data is good data. That's the thing that you have to consider whenever you're building and constructing your database. So you have to think through and actually question whether or not you really need this data.
Yes.
Basically, another way to think of it is like, if I record this and input this data for this person, is it going to be useful to me 6 months from now?
Yeah.
That's a big question, because a lot of times that data may be relevant for that person's like first interaction, and then it's never needed again. So why are you holding on to it?
Yes. And so this is oftentimes what happens. There's kind of two big scenarios. We see the first scenario, just to kind of draw it out, because I'm a visual person, is you have this one person that manages your database. There's my happy person. I stink at drawing, so just to get that out of the way. And so this person, let's say this is the administrator, they have certain data points that they want to record. Things like maybe phone number, things like home address, things like, I don't know, email address. I'm just like writing off all this stuff. But this is only one person. And the problem with one person wanting to create a database is there's all these gaps of data that they don't think of. Maybe they didn't think of, I don't know, wedding anniversary, because that's a big deal for a lot of churches, wanting to know the wedding anniversary of someone if they're married. Maybe they didn't want to record background check. And so there's all these things. If you have one person overseeing all that and they don't talk to anybody, which I'm kind of alluding to that later, you're going to end up with gaps. But then we have churches, Matt, on the flip side of things, just to erase all this. And this is the church that doesn't take the time to set up parameters of like what information they want to record in their database and how they want to record it and stuff. So then you have just a bunch of happy people here. Here's a bunch of happy people here. And they all have free access to your database, and then they just start recording anything and everything. I'm talking like they start creating a bunch of fields, custom fields, using the fields already existing. They're recording like the billing address of a person on top of their home address, on top of a cell phone, on top of a home phone, and all these things, which may be, for some churches what they need. But oftentimes it's not the case. And so then what ultimately happens is it creates a whole bunch of noise in your church database.
I like that.
I know that's a terrible drawing, but you get the idea. It creates all this noise. And so as you start sifting through your database, you're like, man, this is really hard to make sense of all this, because there's just so much going on.
So you have to sift through a lot of useless data to get the actual information you're looking for on every single member in your database.
Yes.
And that's a mess. It's a huge waste of time to have to dig through all of that just to find the little bit of info that you actually need. I'm looking at the wrong camera. I need to be over here. I'm sorry.
All right, so Matt, let's bring this back to the software now and some real scenarios, okay?
Yes.
So I'm in the software, and let's say, okay, you're the family pastor. You want to send a monthly email newsletter to all of your parents and volunteers to keep them in the loop. And so in order to do this, I've already done my legwork, and maybe I created a smart list. And I have like children's ministry, parent, volunteers and parents, and it has all these groups that are a part of it in here that I can start adding in here. And on like this case, I need to add one more criteria. And so in this case, I want it to be a group. And so I can say the group also equals, and then I can put like parent. And so you get the idea. You can already see where things are starting to get. Do you see this?
Yeah, I see parent of students, single parent household, parent program,
so,
on and on.
So this is part of the issue, is when you have multiple people doing things, adding things to a database, then you start having like duplicate groups, duplicate smart lists. You have some people in one group but not in the other group, when really there should have just been one group with all the people. And then all of a sudden you have someone like, I don't know, me, who's a very organized person, or at least tries to be organized. I look at this and I don't talk to anybody else, and I say, well, I see there's multiple groups. So then I start deleting groups. And then before you know it, you have your database missing groups and missing smart lists, all because your admin was trying to keep things organized. It's just a mess. And we see this probably every single day, is because churches just aren't communicating internally in how they create all of their things. And so then they're left with a database that's missing information and is cluttered and stuff.
And so this would be very helpful, though. There are we can get into that later with using your smart list to kind of find out what data gaps you have, but we'll get into that later.
And I promise we're going to get into some big things in the software itself, but I want to encourage you all. This is an exercise I learned from a church that probably had the best looking database I've ever seen in my entire life, Matt.
Okay.
Like it was pristine. It should have been like in the dictionary for like amazing church database. And I asked the leadership of the church, how did you do this? How did you create a database that just had all of the exact information you needed in the way you wanted it, and it was so clean, there was nothing too much, but there was no situation where I didn't have enough. And they said that they got everyone together and they basically just started listing out everything. Like, okay, you are my worship leader. What are all the things you need to know about your people? Okay, you're our administrator. What are all the things you need to know? And so I would encourage you, this is a really easy exercise. Just have all of your leadership at your church, even if it's just 2 people in your leadership or there's 20 people in your leadership, however many, just have them all start listing off, these are all the things that I need to know about our people. And I'm gonna show you something really funny, and this is kind of wild, and this is where we're at in the world. But you can take those lists of all the people in your church. You can go to a tool like ChatGPT. We're getting real here. I'm on ChatGPT. I'm just pasting this in. So just to show everybody here, if I can zoom in a hair so y'all can see this, I'm asking ChatGPT, can you give me a breakdown of the most popular to least popular data fields requested by my church leaders? And then I listed off my church leaders. All right, our administrator, they want the home address, billing address, profile. Pastor wants this. Family pastor wants this. So I paste all that in here, and then I'm just going to tell ChatGPT, go. And you can do, basically any AI tool these days will do this for you. And so now it's pulling together all those fields and it's giving me the most popular data fields right here. This is so remarkably easy.
Super easy. So literally by just putting that question out there to your team and then getting their replies by text or email, just copy and paste that into ChatGPT. Basically what I'm describing is you can send all of this out, gather it from your members.
Yeah.
And then just copy paste it in, and it only takes a few minutes to do all of that to have what you're looking for.
And at the time when this church I was working with did this, there was no ChatGPT, obviously. They had to like manually do this. But it's such a great exercise because now you're getting everyone on the same page in your team and understanding. And so that way you realize, like as a pastor, oh, I didn't even think that we probably need to record secondary address because we have so many people at our church that actually are snowbirds and stuff like that. And so it's just really healthy to have that because then you as a team understand what everybody else is trying to get, so that way you're not left with a database that's missing information or has too much. And one thing you want to do in the software, so going to ChurchTrac, I want to show this in the setup tab here because this is such a big thing. User-defined fields. These are big because every church is got some sort of user-defined field they're creating for something. And I'll just ask this in the chat. What are some user-defined fields that you have created? Have you created a user-defined field for maybe like a first visit date for your people? Have you created a user-defined field for maybe when someone's been baptized or someone became a new member at your church? I'd be super curious to see that here. So just kind of going through the chat. Yeah, what are some user-defined fields? I want to see some of the ones people created. And if you're watching us from the future, obviously you can't participate live, but you can always reach out to our support team. So different user-defined fields. Now, Matt, what would you say are probably some of the most popular ones you see churches do?
Like the day to become a member and baptism dates.
Yeah.
But also, I don't remember like wedding anniversaries if that's not already included in the directory. That's crucial for any married couple.
Yeah.
Those are things that I see a lot of churches adding to their database.
Yeah. And so I see a lot of those things, and here's some really good stuff. I'm so glad we had this chat because it gives church leaders the ability to see what other churches are doing here.
Yep.
You see baptism, membership class, things like that, first time visit, but then you have things like, okay, celebrate recovery, marriage is put in there. That's like a huge thing, and I've actually worked a lot of churches that have that as a field to celebrate that. Also, church here, Jessica put in t-shirt sizes, waiver links, like those are big things.
That's a big deal.
Date of death, newsletter recipient. So like you see, like every church has all these specific things. And so that's why it's so important to just get with our team to get everyone on the same page. But then going beyond that, this is where I'm kind of nerding out a little, I don't know why, but so when you start adding your fields, you have to start thinking through, okay, like what are the types of fields that we're going to create for these specific things? And let me give you a really good example. Okay, I want to know who has a background check, Matt.
Okay.
because it's so important, as a church for us to run background checks on people that are going to be in children's ministry. But here's the deal. There's multiple ways that I can record it depending on what my purpose is here. And so I could have a yes or no option and say, background check completed, and then have that assigned to people, add that field, there you go. But here's the thing. I actually want to know the date that someone's background check was completed, because every 5 years we do a new background check, or maybe every 2 years we do one. Yeah. So in that case, it's actually not background check completed, yes or no. I'm going to delete that. It's actually going to be background check date. And so there we go. I've already got it created here, but I have a date picker, background check date. And so that way I know the exact date.
Yeah, but you can also now run reports on user-defined fields in ChurchTrac. So you could even pull up a report to see if anybody has completed that or has that field filled out after a certain date.
Yeah. And so I think that's like the whole thing coming back to this is like determining the information we want to store, but then, all right, we know the information we want to store, but like how do we want to store our information? And that comes back to like the field types and everything. And there's a lot. Like it's going to take you as a church, whether you're a new church or a church that's been around for 100 years, like this is a really healthy thing, I think, to always evaluate every few years, just to make sure that you're not storing too much information, because every bit of information you store is just more stuff to sift through and keep track of. But also make sure you're storing enough information, because churches also fall into that thing where they just don't have information that they probably need to have to actually do their ministry better.
Yep.
Now, we've gone through all that. Now we're going to get into the pro tips. And this is really, I think, where if like a church is doing these 7 things in their church database, it's going to do wonders for them.
Yeah. This is going to be the thing that will help clarify exactly what you're doing in your database so that you understand and can dive in with intention, but also help you just leverage all the different tools and resources in the database to their fullest potential.
Yeah. So the first one, use Add My Family to crowdsource your data, and then I'll put a little and Church Connect because they'll both do it.
Yeah. So in ChurchTrac, you can go to the Church Connect feature, or you can just go to the we'll just do it right here in the people screen. Click the Actions button, and then click the Add My Family QR/setup option in that drop-down menu, and it opens up a little window on the side with a QR code and a URL. If anyone scans that QR code or clicks on that link, it'll take them to a form they can fill out, which will submit and you can even customize the form itself by adding fields to it to gather their information. But that will submit their personal information to your database for you. This is just to help you and make it easier, because in the past you had to have a physical card that people filled out.
Yep.
And then that person had to turn that in to somebody, and then that somebody had to take it to probably you, whoever's watching this, so that you could sit down in the directory and actually fill that out yourself. But now the people can do this for you. You can basically crowdsource this.
Yep.
And have your members and your guests submit that on your behalf.
And it's just great because if they're already in your database, then it's going to just try to update their information accordingly. But if they're not in your database, it's going to create a whole new person. And not only are they adding themselves, but they can add their entire family as they do this.
Because this covers that scenario, that pitfall we talked about earlier of a database filled with old data.
Yep.
Because I see this a lot too, especially when I'm talking to churches that are just getting started with their ChurchTrac account, and they're moving from an old database into ChurchTrac.
Yep.
And they're like, well, I kind of need to clean it up first, because a lot of it will be filled with people that aren't around at the church anymore, or old addresses and old phone numbers and just information that isn't even relevant anymore.
We see this so much, and because it's a struggle. It is a struggle sometimes to get your people and say, hey, we need your updated home address. We sent your contribution statement to you and it got kicked back to us because we didn't have your right address. Just stuff like that.
And so by having this Add My Family form you can guarantee that your data is as up to date as possible, because people are going to only submit the information that's actually relevant to them anymore.
Yeah, and then going in tandem with that, so we talk about Add My Family, but right in line with that is Church Connect. And so to show you that, so I'm logged in as a member on Church Connect using our church's app here. And so your people at any time, all they have to do is go to that menu on the top right, and they can go to My Profile. And what's so nice here is at any time they can update their information. I can put a new photo of myself on here for the church to be able to have for our directory. I can update stuff like my phone number, my email address, membership date. And these are things, I put this here because I wanted churches to see that you can have user-defined fields show up here as well. And so you can give people the ability to put in those user-defined fields as well, which is nice.
Very nice. Very
text
handy.
opt-in, that's a big one. Put in yes. That way I opt in my text messages. I can update the information from my family. And all of this goes right to the people screen.
Yeah, because you logged into your account in Church Connect, it's connected to your profile on the people screen, so it just feeds that right into the database.
Yeah, and just to really reinforce this for you all, Church Connect, that is for your church people. ChurchTrac, that's the software we're showing now.
It's the administration
Yeah,
tool.
this is your admin side. Okay, so that's a really big one, using Add My Family and Church Connect to really crowdsource that data, Matt. Another tool that I think just doesn't get used enough, or churches don't fully realize it, is the archive feature.
Yes. So use archive to clean up your database and save your church money. Because in ChurchTrac, you're paying for the number of people you have in your database. I can't tell you how many churches I've talked to that are, let's say, paying for the 250 name tier. Mm-hmm. And they have hundreds of names in their database. But if you ask them, only like 110 people come on a Sunday morning, a little over 100.
Yeah.
If they were to comb through their people screen and archive the people that are no longer there, it could push them below the next lowest name tier and therefore save them money on a monthly or annual basis.
Yeah, and just beyond that, obviously archive names don't count towards your name tier and it'll save you money, but also just having archive names enables you to have a clean database where it's just not cluttered with people that have maybe passed away,
Way
have
easier
moved.
to manage.
Yeah, whatever the situation may be, you don't need them in your database anymore. And so I'm going to pick a random person here, but let's say Mary Beth, she no longer goes to our church. And so I want to go ahead and archive Mary. Well, all I have to do is select the edit button and I can archive Mary. And then I can even put, why is this person being archived? And I can say, Mary moved. Sounds like a song name, actually, kind of funny. And then say yes to archive Mary and archive Mary Beth. And now she's archived.
Yep. But no, you still retain her data.
Yes, got all her data.
You still keep it, but you're no longer paying for her to be there.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, I just created Mary Beth earlier, and so she really didn't have any data. So that was like the irony of it all, is Mary Beth didn't even really have data to begin with. But at any time, you can unarchive a person by just going to that Actions button, and then you can go to View Archived Names and see all the people that you have archived and see the reason they were archived, when they were archived, and you can restore them. So if Mary ever moved back, started coming to our church again, we could just unarchive Mary. So that's a good one. All right, now I kind of was near the area that we're talking about for our next pro tip. This pro tip is going to save churches at least maybe an hour of their life once a month, and that's just at bare minimum. If it's a church that's really using ChurchTrac heavily, it's going to save them hours of their life. What is it, Matt?
So it's bulk edit. Nancy actually in the chat had a question about this. So use bulk edit to save yourself a tremendous amount of time. That's the pro tip. Bulk edit allows you to apply a certain action to multiple people at a time. Her question earlier, Nancy's question earlier, was can you like combine people in groups? Mm-hmm. And you can't directly, like you can't just delete a group and it just automatically rolls those people into another group. But what you can do is delete a group, and as long as you know who was in that group originally, you can just, in a bulk action, or a bulk edit, apply that other group to all those people really quickly. And
let me show you an example. It's like, I'm going to create a random group here real fast. So I'm going to fly through this, add a new group, and I'm going to call this group the Awesome Cool People. I know, it's ridiculous, but I want you to at least remember it and get the point.
Secretary Berean is in that group because they say bulk edit is awesome.
So there we go. So, all right, Awesome Cool People is a new group that I made, and I want to add, let's see, I want to add everybody who is a elder into that group.
Okay.
So now I selected a smart list of elders, and then I just go, actions here, and I want to check all names.
Perfect.
And then hit that actions button again, bulk edit, check names. And then what do I want to do to these 10 names that I've checked? Well,
add a group.
Add a group. And notice you've got other options. You can update a field value, remove a group, archive a name. So if you're archiving a lot of people at once. But now I can select a group, and I'm going to search awesome, cool people. There it is. I have awesome Lego man. What in the world am I doing in this database? All right.
This church definitely has too many people using this.
The youth pastor is going nuts in this database. You need to tell the youth pastor to maybe get out of there. All right, so apply bulk changes here. And now, yes, I want to apply that bulk change. And there we go. I've just added those 10 people that were in my elder smart list. Now they're in the awesome, cool people group that we have there.
And it only took you a few seconds.
Yeah, instead of having to do that for each person. And this is going to be so helpful when you have like hundreds of people you're doing things on.
Yes.
To be able to move them to different groups.
You don't have to be a church that big for this to be beneficial. It could be a dozen people at a time. Instead of clicking through each individual one, you just check them all off and then apply that action and you're done.
Yeah, if you take away anything today, it's that bulk edit, using that in your church database is going to save you a dramatic amount of time, not only in the initial setup and everything, or when you're doing spring cleaning and stuff, but just keeping track of all the things. Bulk edit is amazing. So yeah, that's a big one.
Pro tip number 4 is knowing when to use groups versus using fields.
Yes, this is a big one.
This is so big, and that's because this is like, if you use fields when you should use a group, that's probably the fastest way to clutter your database.
Yes.
Because you're just adding fields, and those fields will appear on everybody's profile. But what you're doing is you're creating a situation where everybody has this long list of fields, and for everybody, most of those fields are blank. Because those fields are only relevant for a small portion of your members.
Yeah, and I think, because, and I'm sorry I was like cutting you off earlier, I saw Derek gave one about CPR, AED trained.
Yes.
And I think that's an excellent situation because just to show everybody real quick, I'm going to go and look at the fields of like Matt Barker here. And so I've got some fields here, and we have some user-defined fields. Now, if I start creating a bunch of user-defined fields for all these different things I want to, assign to people, record on people, well, it can get kind of crazy. And so I can add another field, and I can call this one, CPR certified. Yes or no, add that field. This is actually a really common one I see, Matt, churches use.
Yeah, like background checks, CPR certification, other trainings or certifications for safety or for this and that. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, that's fine, but when it comes to your database, I always say, well, if it's only going to be something that has to do with a very small portion, then that's probably going to be a better situation to use a group, because then all I have to do is then I just go here in groups, I create a group. So I'm going to create a new group here, and I'm going to call this CPR certified, or just CPR cert, okay. And then I'm just going to quickly add Matt into that group. So going back here, so go to everyone again in my list, and I can search Matt. And then where did he go?
Was it Matt Barker? He's at the top.
He's at the top. Oh, look at that. He's right there in my face. All right, so Matt Barker. And so then on Matt, I can go ahead, go to Matt's groups, and then I can add a group, and then I can just search CPR cert, add that group. And so that way I'm not having a field on every single person in my database.
Yes, exactly. This is, because CPR certification, there's probably only going to be, let's say, a maximum 10 or 12 people at your church that have that certification at all.
Just depending on your church, yeah. And some churches are different. Like if you have children's ministry, that's maybe one of your things where everybody...
for all of them.
Yeah, like at my church, everybody in our children's ministry has to be CPR certified, just for safety's sake. But yeah, I think when it comes down to deciding whether or not to use a field versus a group, I always lean back towards, are you trying to store information, or are you trying to organize? And so fields are more for storing information, and then groups are more for organization. I can't even
Spit it out, Wes. Spit it out.
Organization. So I'll say that again, because this is probably one of the most important things when you're trying to figure out. Groups are for organizing your people. Fields are more so for storing information. Now, there is a lot of layover. Like you can use either or, just depending on your needs, but ultimately it comes down to one is going to be better suited for a specific need than the other.
Yeah. Because like, just to give you the flip side of this, Jessica Engel earlier with Marion Avenue Baptist Church, she answered in the chat, they have fields for like t-shirt sizes, waiver lengths, and baptism dates. Well, those three things affect the vast majority, virtually all of the people in your church. Everybody wears t-shirts.
Yes.
Everybody wears clothes.
They should.
Everybody, like, for waiver links, if they want to be a part of certain events at your church, then yeah, they need to have those waivers already signed, and you need to have that stored in your database just for your own sake, for your church's own sake. And then baptism date. I mean, we're a church. We want to baptize as many people as possible. So yeah, having that field to know who's been baptized and when is super helpful for doing ministry at your church. All three of those fields affect all or almost all of your people. So that's exactly what a field is for, not a group.
Yeah, and I'll give one more example. Like, not that I want to like beat this dead horse, but like another really good example is like, let's say your church is wanting to keep track of the like progression of someone, their spiritual progression.
Yeah.
I've seen some churches have a group called like spiritual progression, and then they have like seeker,
steps.
Believer, and then they just assign that group. And then when that person moves to the next step, the one group's pulled away, and then that new one's added, and then you get into automations, and it's real crazy cool. But then I've seen other churches create a field in which it was like a checkbox and stuff. So it really just comes down to, I lean more towards groups a lot of times because I feel like more so churches are organizing people than storing information.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just comes down to what you need as a church. Okay, enough on that. I don't want to harp on groups versus user-defined fields. We could talk more about that later, or if we want to have a special segment of this live stream called, is it or groups or fields? You know, groups or fields, and then people just start shooting us the thing in chat. Yeah.
So pro tip number 5. Leverage smart lists to organize your people for reports and messaging. This is really crucial. This will actually help you organize your database far more than even groups do, just because these are automated.
Yes.
You don't have to manually add people or remove people from these smart lists. You just tell the system what criteria. We were showing a smart list earlier, so you guys know.
Yeah.
You just tell the people or tell the system what criteria somebody has to meet in order to be included into the list, and then they get sorted in automatically from there.
And this is probably the most basic of it, Matt. Like, I want to know who my active members are at my church.
Yeah.
Well, their member status equals member. Active status equals yes. There you go.
Perfect. So it's not just members, because some people are members but haven't been there for a while.
Yeah.
These are people who are actively attending.
And one thing I want to point out, you know, we're talking about smart lists. You can either have people match all of the criteria, and in this case, they need to match both of those criteria. They need to be active and they need to be a member, or they can match any of the criteria. Now, in this case, any is not going to work. But then you have another situation. I'll give you a classic example. Students.
Yep.
It is impossible for a kid to be in middle school and high school at the same time.
Yeah.
And if they are, like, how is that happening?
Yeah, well, at the very least, they can't be 13 and 15 at the same time.
No.
So they have to be either 13 to 14 or 15 to 18 to be included in this list.
Yeah, and this is a common troubleshooting thing too when I'm helping churches and they're like, I'm just trying to figure out
I made this list and it's not working.
This is the first thing I always go back to is, are you using match all criteria, match any criteria, because that can cause things to break down if you don't have it properly selected. But yeah, smart lists, leveraging those for things like your messaging, because whenever we're sending out mass emails to people, there's a lot of times you don't want to send it to just everybody. Maybe you want to send it to all of your active members, sending out a mass email, or sending out a mass text to just your members, or sending it out to the parents of children in your children's ministry. Like, there's so many situations where we want to segment it for messaging, but then going to reports, because any report you generate in ChurchTrac, you can choose who to include by selecting that smart list or by selecting the group.
Yep. So that way you can really target your reporting or your messaging, no matter which way you want to approach it.
Yeah. It's honestly, smart lists and groups are they're so incredibly powerful because they enable you to segment your people in a way that just cuts down on your time, but also makes it to where you have reports of the right people or sending emails or texts to the right people and not the wrong people.
Well, speaking of which, pro tip number 6 is leveraging your smart list to know what data you're missing. So you can use smart list to find those gaps in your data.
This is big brain
this
stuff
is big
right
brain
here.
stuff.
Like, y'all need to watch this.
This is really This is really helpful for, especially knowing if I don't know why I can't talk all of a sudden, but if you have people at your church that you know prefer to be communicated with, let's say just email, and they don't have a phone, they don't ever check it. Or they prefer text and they never check their email. Their email inbox has thousands of emails that they've never opened. You can use SmartList to know exactly who those people are, or use your SmartList to like know who's missing that data so you can reach out to them and ask for it. But in this case, like this church has this no phone number but email SmartList. So they haven't, this is a SmartList that groups everybody together that has an email address but doesn't have a phone number. And the way you do this is by adding criteria, and then saying that pulling up a field and like selecting a certain type of field and then selecting the is blank option.
Yeah.
So Wes, if you use the add criteria, go ahead and click add criteria. And then add a mobile phone, even though we already have that on there. Just go ahead and show them how it works. Mobile phone is, and then in that field on the right, blank or not blank. So by selecting that blank option, it'll group everybody together that field is empty. So you'll know who doesn't have that data on file.
And we can do one in real time because I think this is so highly relevant. And in fact, let me know in the chat, do you struggle with having maybe the phone number of a person but not their email address? Or do you struggle with maybe having the email address but not their phone number? Because this is a really great tool, and I'm going to show you. So I'm going to create a smart list in real time. So add a new smart list, and I'm going to call this one no email but phone number. And this is kind of a terrible name. It should be something cooler, but no email but phone number. And so now I'm going to add my criteria to this smart list. And I'm going to say, okay, the first criteria is the email address is blank, save. All right, so that's the first criteria. But I have their phone number, so then I put mobile phone is not blank, save. There we go. And match all criteria. So email address is blank, but the phone number is not blank. So that means these are all people I have a phone number on, but I don't have an email address on. And so when I go to show matching names on my database, there's 6 people there on my database. Y'all, this is the power. Check this out. No email but phone number. Well, then I can go to the actions button here. I'll check all those people. So there's 6 people there. I hop over to the messaging screen. And then I go to send out a text message to all those people, and it's going to automatically say include only the names that are checked on the people screen. And then I can say, hi there, we do not have your email address for our church records. Please reply back with your email. And if you're using our Twilio integration, that's the beauty of it, because then you start getting those replies come back to you in ChurchTrac, and then you can start updating the information accordingly.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Easy.
That's some cool stuff right there, Matt. That is probably one of my favorite ways to leverage smart lists, and I can't believe that sentence just came out of my mouth because it just sounded so nerdy. But it's just so cool how we can leverage databases, and if we know the information we need and what we're trying to find out, and knowing how to use the system to make it happen, we can end up being able to connect with our people better.
Yep, and it streamlines it too and simplifies it, because otherwise you'd have to like get up on the stage and ask for it there, or stand out in the welcome area and like try to grab people and talk to them. This, you can just send it out to them, they can send it to you, and you don't have to do anything in the meantime. Yeah, or like me having to like manually text every single one of these people and beg them for their email address so I can keep their records updated and stuff. But then all that comes back to probably add my family and stuff, which is ultimately, many of you I think are gonna get a lot of value out of that. All right, so that's a good one. All right, now this next pro tip, Matt, this is our last one, and I think we saved the best for last in this. This is using automations. Automations will save you even more time than bulk edit does. Yes, because the system, the account will do the work for you. All you have to do is go to the settings and automations feature, then go to the automations tab at the very top of the screen, and well let's show them the new guest follow-up just as an example. Yeah. So Wes, why don't you walk them through what you've done or what you've created here?
And so what I did here, I created an automation, and it's made of actions and options. And if you want to know more about automations, because obviously it's a whole thing in itself, but the action is what you want to have happen. And the option is when is it going to happen and who's it going to happen to. So I wanted to send an email to a first-time guest, welcome them to our church and everything, and you can build that out and all that good stuff. But then I want to email a specific ChurchTrac user, in this case you, Matt, okay. And it's going to send you an email with just their name, information, and then maybe like say new guest follow-up. And so I'm not trying to make this too crazy. I just want you to know, hey, this is a person's information and this is a new guest follow-up, so that way you got an email about it. And then it created tasks for you, and so I can assign that task to you, Matt, and say, all right, follow up with, and then putting in their information, so that way you have a task saved in ChurchTrac automatically, and then it adds a note to their profile in the database saying a new guest follow-up has been sent, first-time guest follow-up has been sent. And so, yeah, it's kind of wild. Like automations, leveraging automations really can take you as a church from here to here in terms of just all, not even productivity, but just how you connect with your people.
Yeah. It's not just, like Wes is saying, it's not just about efficiency and streamlining and simplification. It's about ministry.
Yeah.
Even your database software, which, I mean, the way we typically think of these as just tools that we're using, but even these need to advance the mission of the church.
Yeah.
And this is how you do that. By not just simplifying, but by leveraging the tools to help you understand who your people are and communicate with them so that you can do ministry with them.
Yeah. Now, in terms of automations, I have a caveat because I mean, you and I talk about AI stuff all the time, and I'm probably one of the biggest adopters in trying to leverage tools that automate my life and everything, because I like to 10x my production, as they say.
I'm the opposite. I'm a move slow and fix things as opposed to move fast and break things kind of guy.
Yeah. But so here's my caveat. So I'll use an example. My dentist sent me an email on my birthday wishing me happy birthday, which is hilarious because I see my dentist twice a year when I get my teeth cleaned, but he sent me happy birthday. But it was an automated email.
Of course.
Now, you can create automations in ChurchTrac, like just to show that off real fast. Birthday automation, send an email, and so I actually deleted this one earlier, but anyways, you get the idea. You can have it send an email to a person saying happy birthday, have a great day, you know that. But this is a situation where I would argue this is probably one of the worst ways to use an automation. And the reason why is because it's not really personal.
And people know.
They know.
People know.
Like, I mean, I guess it's better that you do this at least than nothing.
Yeah.
But the way to take this to the next level is to have that automation actually send the pastor a text message saying, hey, it's so-and-so's birthday today. Here's their phone number. Send them a happy birthday text from your phone.
Yeah.
Instead of from the system just sending them a generic happy birthday email.
And people would actually like getting both.
Yes.
From the church proper and from the pastor.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's just a neat way how, like, automations, we could talk probably for hours about automations, but there's so many ways you can leverage automations with your church database that really can just take your ministry to another level. Not necessarily, I mean, obviously in the sense of just what you can do in volume, but also the quality of what we're able to do and how we connect with our people to ultimately build the body of Christ, because that's what we're about.
That's what we're about. That's what we're here for.
All right. Well, that was a lot. Matt, that was so much.
That was a lot.
This was tough because there really, I probably had 15 pro tips that we could have shared. But we had to think like, all right, what are the pro tips that are going, if you did these like 7 pro tips, these are the things that would really take your use of your church database to the next level and really do it well and do it with excellence. And I think those 7 do a really great job of that.
Absolutely. This will be the thing that like will help you. I don't know why I'm talking about you all like you're not watching. This will be the thing. Those will be the things that help you leverage all the tools and just simplify the work that you're doing so that you can spend more time doing ministry rather than just managing your church.
Yeah. So let's do this. I want to start our Q&A because we've got a lot of people. So we're going to start our Q&A. And the Q&A, this is different from the chat, everybody. So the Q&A, this is where you can submit your questions and everything, and that way we can answer your questions in real time. And we're going to pause the chat. So I'm actually going to tell the chat, we'll keep the chat on for the sake of just you being able to say things to us, and like seeing things from Ken. You guys are great. Thank you, Ken. You're great. But use this Q&A that we open.
Yeah.
And I want you all to just start asking us any questions you have. It could be questions like, hey, would you use this as a group, or would you use this as a field? It could be questions like, hey, how would you do an automation for this? Things like that. And we can go through and start doing this in real time. And if you're watching us in the future, hello future, we can't obviously answer your question in real time now because this is now an event that's in the past, but you can always reach out to our support team and ask us a question and we'll get an answer to you pretty quickly. So yeah, Q&A is open, it's live, and you can start asking your questions away. I may go ahead and just close down our chat for the time being so people don't get confused what the Q&A is and what the chat is. So Q&A is open. And it's always that brief moment where we have to wait for people to start asking all those questions, Matt.
Well, while they're thinking through, I keep talking about you like you're not here. While you're thinking through your questions, don't forget, we have a YouTube channel that we would love for you to subscribe to with hundreds of videos. Other masterclasses like this one, in fact. And in fact, this one will be on the YouTube channel in a couple of days. So definitely subscribe to the YouTube channel just to stay up to date on everything that we're doing there. Also, the Facebook group. We would love to have you join that Facebook group so that you can join that community of other ChurchTrac users, ask questions there for inspiration, for ideas for how to use the software. We even see people ask questions that have nothing to do with ChurchTrac, like just different tools or different ideas for ministry. It's an awesome community. Please join that. And then again, you can always reach the support team anytime you have questions. Just go to churchtrac.com/support or click that orange help button at the top of the screen in your account to reach us anytime. Okay, now the questions are starting to roll in. I think everyone was just getting their cup of coffee and getting ready. Yeah,
but
they must have been settling in for a long Q&A session.
I am ready, and we're prepared to stay here as long as it takes. I want to answer everybody's questions today and anything else you could think of. So, Matt, where should we start?
Yeah, Steve Hampton said, is there a way to see who has a Church Connect account on the people screen? Steve, not on the people screen, but in Church Connect itself. If you go to the Church Connect feature and then click the Connect Users tab at the very top of the screen, this will give you a list of everyone who has created an account in Church Connect. So that's where you'll find that. All right, Philip, how to do an automation for email or text on a wedding anniversary. For wedding anniversaries, I don't think we have an automation for anniversaries yet.
Not at this time, but that is something we're actively looking at doing, incorporating user-defined fields with automations.
Yeah,
and how to
because we get that request, Philip's request, a lot. Like a lot.
So developers, if you're watching, that's a request right there.
And if you're not, we'll come find you and tell you. All right. Doug, please explain the difference between groups and smart lists. Okay, yeah, we talked about groups and fields. Groups and smart lists are different because a group is a single point of data. We used to call them tags. They're basically a label that you create and then assign to your members just so that you understand where they're serving, how they're participating or plugged in at your church or something like that. But smart lists are able to collate multiple points of data into one list, like their member status and their active status, or their ages, or something like that. So you can pull, smart lists are good for pulling multiple things into one list, where a group is just one point of data that you're assigning to your people manually.
And just to show, like, I'm just going to pull up a random one because I think the big difference that you're going to see, that criteria, so I have all these different criteria to pick from, and so it could be something as crazy as like, does their birth month equal the month of March, whatever it may be, and they have to meet the specific criteria. And the thing is, like, if it's a certain type of criteria that's date related, well, that can change depending on the day and stuff like that. And so the smart list really is something, it's not a static list of just here it is what it is, and it doesn't change. You know, it changes depending on whether or not people meet the criteria to be in the specific
That's what
list.
I was getting at earlier when I said that they're automated. It's not a static list that you have to manually add or remove people from to keep it updated. The system will sort people in and out of those lists on your behalf.
Yeah, so when you're adding a bunch of people into a group, it doesn't change unless you change it. Whereas when you're adding a bunch of people, or when you're creating a smart list that is based on specific criteria, that list of people goes up and down and fluctuates depending on whether or not they meet those criteria.
Mm-hmm. Secretary Berean, who was in that cool people list because she said that bulk edit, or he said bulk edit was awesome.
Yeah.
They said, how do you add a child to an existing family without starting from scratch? Good question, because that changes. You know, people, families, big families come and go.
Yeah.
Go to the people screen. You don't have to start from scratch, but you do have to add that person as if they're an individual that just joined the church and not connected to another family. So you click that add a name or add names and families button there. Add that person, just fill in their basic information. Last name, there you go, yep. And then below that, there's this use an existing family section or option there. If you click that, then select that family name. So yeah, John or Jamie, whatever family they're joining, and then submit. And that'll then add that person into the database and connect them to an existing family. Just as long as you fill in, kind of round out their data with these other fields here as well. That's how you do that. Just don't miss that use an existing family option, that little tab there in that menu when you're adding their name. All right, so that's adding people without doing it from scratch. Doug, please explain the difference between groups and smart lists. Okay, we just did that. Thank you. Patricia, my computer timed out at bulk edit, so I missed that part.
Yeah,
Do you have a quick summary? Yes. So Patricia, if you click the actions button and then select the bulk edit check names button, a menu will open up for you to perform an action on all the names that were checked on the people screen. So you can either use that check all names button that Wes just did really quickly, or you can scroll through and check off like just an ad hoc group of people and then perform an action or an edit across all of them at once just by clicking that actions button, bulk edit, and select what you want to do.
Yeah, and I love it just because you can very quickly change field values and all sorts of things. So, yeah.
I love Jessica Engel's question. If your database is a dumpster fire waiting to happen, how do you start cleaning that out? Ours has over 5,000 names.
Whoa.
And it's been neglected for years. Unless I go through each and every name, how do I start cleaning this up? Jessica, don't do that. Just use the add my family feature. Literally, that's the best way to start clean and fresh. Just go to the actions menu on the people screen, select add my family QR/setup. You can also find this under Church Connect. There's an add my family tab at the top of the screen there. But just grab that QR code or that URL and share that with your members. Put that QR code up on the screen during worship or during the announcements. Have it in the welcome area of your church, and just encourage all of your people to fill out that form. Because that will capture the people who are actually attending your church.
Yeah.
It sounds to me like you just need to do a hard refresh on your church data. And that would be the way to do it, by collecting the info from the people that are actually there anymore.
Yeah, maybe like archiving pretty much everybody that they know with certainty is just not there or passed away or whatever.
Yeah.
And then, that's probably going to be the best way. But reach out to our support team and give us more information. I want to know, what is your weekly attendance like and everything, because the way you would approach it is very different depending on if you have a weekly attendance of 500 people or 50 people. And so, let's look at that together. Dumpster fire.
Dumpster fire. Sorry, Jessica.
We see, and Jessica, I just want to encourage you, we see dumpster fires every day here at ChurchTrac, because a lot of churches, in their quest to use our software to make things more organized and better, you got to start somewhere. And for most churches, that somewhere is a dumpster fire. I hate to use that word because it sounds so harsh, but you have a lot of old data. You have data that just isn't reflective anymore of your church because maybe your church is 100 years old. I mean, we see churches all the time that have over 100 years worth of history, and they're trying to make sense of all this, Matt. And so, there's a few different ways to tackle it depending on, your church.
Yep. All right, thank you very much, Jessica. Jane asks, does a person need to have the Church Connect app before using the QR code to add or update themselves? No.
Nope.
The Add My Family option, that QR code and that URL, that can be filled out by anybody. They don't have to have an account in Church Connect. Having the account in Church Connect is beneficial because then in the future, that member can log into that account and update their information anytime.
Yeah.
But doing the Add My Family thing, especially when you first launch that and share that, that'll just get a huge collection of new or updated data into your database at once.
I just want to stress like how big this feature is because I don't think a lot of people fully realize it. I've worked with pastors that once we came out with this feature that they would put this QR code up on their screen, Matt, and they would share it with their church like, hey, scan this QR code, go to the Welcome Center, scan this QR code, whatever. And they would do that for a month straight because eventually they would catch pretty much everybody because, of course, there's always people that don't attend your church but maybe twice a month or once a month. And they did that for an entire month straight and got like 90% of their active people to fill that out and get all their information.
And just think of all the work and all the time you didn't have to spend.
Yes.
Yourself doing this.
Yeah. Instead of you punching in all that data, you're just reviewing.
It would take hours.
Yes. And you're reviewing the submission now of them punching in all that data for you. Yeah.
Love it.
It's awesome.
Gordon asks, the focus here is on the individual persons. What about the financial information, including in a deep dive like in church databases? Thank you very much, Gordon. You actually asked that in the chat. I saw that. Wasn't able to address it in real time. The reason we didn't go any deeper is because we have done so in other masterclasses on those other features.
Yeah.
We wanted to focus on the database, not the whole management system. So the database being the people info and just things that are directly related to that today. But we've got masterclasses where we've done that deep dive on finances and worship and Church Connect, things like that. So definitely subscribe to the YouTube channel. I know I sound like a broken record. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, watch those videos to get that deep dive that you're looking for. All right, Julie, when we do the spreadsheet to add people, should we do away with quite a few of the user-defined fields we already have that are not useful? Yes. Go ahead and do that now. You can do it after, but it would be better to do it now.
Yeah, just in my experience of working with churches that are doing imports over to us from other platforms or just have an Excel sheet, when you have a bunch of user-defined fields that you don't even use anymore and stuff, it's just kind of silly because now you're just taking all of this train wreck of what you had in your previous database and replicating it to put it in your new database. And so a lot of times it's good to just reevaluate all those fields. That exercise that we talked about a little earlier where, you know, getting together and talking through what data do we actually need? Like, here's what we want to record. Here's why we want to record it. Is it actually in need?
Yes.
I want to record baptism date. Or why do I want to record baptism date? Because we need to know. I want to record the wedding anniversary date. Why do you want to record it? Well, because I want to reach out to our people on their wedding anniversary, wishing them happy anniversary, or maybe the day before their wedding anniversary. But still, it's so important to not come into it with just a database full of user-defined fields that are 20 deep. I've seen it.
We've seen it. We have seen it, yes. Philip said, awesome, I just set up a smart, most popular. Tim Lennox said, can we add people to our mailing list without adding them to our database?
Nope. No,
not in ChurchTrac. You can in MailChimp. Like if you create a MailChimp account, you can add people to that account without having to add them to ChurchTrac. So if you have that as your mailing list, the answer is yes, but not within ChurchTrac, no. You can only use that messaging tool for people that are in the database. So if you want to send them an email through ChurchTrac, you have to add them to the people screen.
Yeah.
Doug, can you post these pro tips as a list? Of course, Doug. I already have them copied. I'm pasting them into the chat. So I'll go ahead and do that right now. I just opened the chat up again. Oh, it's kind of a mess.
Join our Facebook group.
We'll post them there. Okay. All right. Sorry, Doug. But yeah, thank you for that question. Tim asked, when you archive a person, does it affect things like running a contribution statement? No, it doesn't. You can archive someone and they will still get a contribution statement at the end of the year or beginning of the next year, as long as they made a donation in that time frame.
Yeah. Other reports it will, though.
Other reports it will, because I'm pretty sure the contribution statement is the only report that will grab archived people and generate a report for them.
Yeah.
So Amy at Shiloh says, does archiving a name automatically remove it from smart list groups, etc.? Yes. It takes that name and removes it from everything in your account and puts it in a different menu altogether. And it just stores it there and keeps it there until you need it again. So yeah, it'll remove that person from everything except the contribution list, the contribution statement thing. Leslie, fairly new to ChurchTrac. I've never used the messaging feature. Is each user able to respond to me, or is it a one-way thing? And how do they know the text is from the church? Well, you have to tell them it's from the church. They have to save it in their context list like everything else. But the answer to whether or not they can reply back depends on if you're using the built-in tool in ChurchTrac or if you have a Twilio account and you've integrated that with ChurchTrac, which gives you some more tools and functionality. Reach out to the support team for more details on that. But the answer is you can, just depending on how you approach it.
Yeah, and we're doing a full masterclass tomorrow. It's at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Here I am. I totally forgot about that.
On messaging. So we're going to be talking specifically about emailing, texting, and so much more in ChurchTrac, and a big part of segmenting things and just how to do it well.
Yeah, I still have the chat open. I just dropped a link to tomorrow's masterclass for you all to sign up in the chat. So if you're interested, click that link.
Yeah, and we sent a big email about it today, so you'll probably see that in your email as well.
Tika, how can I set up a second and third follow-up for new guests? Oh, task automations, Tika. It's a little bit involved in the software.
This is advanced big brain stuff here.
It's not just that it's advanced big brain. We're not going to show you exactly how to do it just because it is kind of an involved process to set up and we don't have the time. But we do have an article in our user guide, Tika.
You're in the video, man.
I'm in the video. There I am. You're seeing me in two places at once. I'm teleporting. Isn't that amazing? So yeah, that's how you can set that up in ChurchTrac, but there's a specific way to do it. I'll share a link to that article here in just a moment in the chat so that you can have that article and read it later.
I've already got you, man. There it is.
Thank you. Thank you, Wes. See, you always got my back. I can always trust you, Wes. Salvatore Iorfino, I hope I'm saying that right. How do you customize the birthday report to include only active members? You wouldn't... Well, actually, you wouldn't have to customize the birthday report. You would just use the smart list to generate a report for only those people.
Yeah.
So on the people screen, go to the reports tab, Wes. So select birthday reports. And then in the bottom left-hand corner, before you run the report, just make sure you have your active members smart list already selected so that it only runs the report for those people.
Yeah. And you can run that report for anybody. So it could be like all of your elders. It could be your worship team. Anybody.
Yeah, exactly. Michelle, can you automate based on group or field? And then it cuts off. Well, the answer is yes. Not by group, but by smart list. You can run an automation on a smart list.
Yeah.
But that's the only way to segment an automation, not by a field or a group.
Well, it's kind of an open-ended question because it depends on what context we're talking about, because groups and fields are very much involved in automations and doing things, but...
Oh, okay. So I'm thinking of triggers.
Yeah,
so
you're thinking of just
I'm thinking of triggering it and then running it for that specific group. But you can run automations that affect groups and fields, yes. So, Michelle, if you don't mind, maybe send a support ticket with a fuller detail question of what you're looking for so that we can get you the answer you need. Annette, in people, when would you use child instead of member? Is it better to use child in the role field? Well, Annette, that's kind of up to your church, what you classify a child. That's kind of what it comes down to. I see some churches, they don't label any of their kids as children. They're just all members.
Yeah.
Or some that don't even add them to the database until they've become a member and they have to be like an adult in order to make that decision and consent to do that. So it just depends. It depends on how, what you classify a child and whether or not you want to label them as such in the database.
One thing I would say this, depending on your state, because we do have the child protection laws.
Yes.
And also depending on your country, because there are some of you out there using ChurchTrac in other countries, you want to label children appropriately, legally speaking as well. Because the last thing you want to do is have an online directory that has the information of minors in there. And so if you are not labeling children properly in your database, things like your online directory are going to show up the information of those children incorrectly. By default, ChurchTrac will not show the information of minors in the online directory unless they're an adult, then it'll show them. So. And you don't want to change that. You do want to stay on the up and up. You do not want your government knocking at your door saying you just had information that you shouldn't be having on the internet of minors. That'd be terrible.
Yeah. Gordon, thank you very much for this clarification from earlier about the deep dive into the church database. You mentioned just a list of the major entities. The reason I'm answering this, you said just a list of the major entities and their interrelationships would be helpful in any deep dive into the ChurchTrac database. We would call that a data model. Well, Gordon, we do that every week. We literally did this earlier this morning. We call it our Getting Started workshop, where we run through the entire software, show all the highlights of the features and how they are connected to each other and how they work in concert with one another. We typically do those on Tuesdays. We did it today just because our video guy, David, came in today and wasn't here yesterday. That was it. We do it every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time where we run through that. So you're more than welcome to join us next week if you're interested. Nathan, is it possible to add people to my database from any form by a simple click of a button? If not, is this something you can consider working on adding? No, you can't add people directly from any form, but the Add My Family form you can. That's what that was built to do. So that's the thing you would use for that.
Well, and basically Add My Family or Church Connect, because when people create a profile, it is just a process of matching them. And so when you go into things like Church Connect and you see those Connect users and people start requesting, it is a matter of just simply clicking Add, and then you add them to either a new family or an existing family, and that's it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Now we do gather the form responses for you under that Form Responses tab. But you would have to generate a report with that and then manually add those people. There's no click of a button, boom, 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 and then they're added for you.
Yeah, really when it comes down to Add My Family is going to be key.
Yeah, that's it.
It is. All you have to do is just add that person. And you do want to double check people, because you don't want people just willy-nilly creating randomness and then you have a database full of terrible information. You still want to be the gatekeeper to make sure that information is good before it actually gets added to your database.
Mm-hmm. Salvatore Iorfino, again, I apologize if I'm butchering the pronunciation of your name. I see a field called SMS status as criteria for smart lists, but don't see that field as one of my standard or ad hoc fields. So if you go to the smart lists and then SMS status, I forget what exactly that information is stored there. So why don't we check that out real quick?
So under my smart list map?
Smart list, yeah. And then just add criteria. It's not that. It's if you add criteria and then SMS status equals opted in. Yeah. So yeah, that's not a field per se on the people screen, but it is data that we have collected for you, whether or not members have opted into receiving text. So that's what that is. There
are some situations when you're creating smart lists where it is pulling not only from your own user-defined fields, but also the fields built into ChurchTrac, and the SMS status is one of those. City, state, zip, that's another field. These are all ones that are built into ChurchTrac already by default.
Mm-hmm. Tiffany asked, if we use the data picker field option, do we have the option to just type the date in, or does it function like it does in report? Being forced to use the mouse to search and click the correct date can be very frustrating. Yeah, it is a date picker, so it is going to pull up that calendar. That's actually a good question. I don't think there's a way to type that date in that field, but I've never actually tried that.
There's a way to find
out. I work here and I don't know the answer to that question.
So if we go to a random person here and I'll just pull a field.
You have to
I guess I need to, let's just see what fields to go here. So edit a profile here. and I can go down to, what was the field we just looked at, Matt?
It'll be near the bottom if you just created it. There we go.
There it is. So like baptism date. You can automatically just type something in. So if I wanted to put a new baptism date, I can say, I believe, oh no, I can't.
Oh, you can't.
You
You can't do it, Wes. Nope, so it's just a date picker. But you can quickly run to, the year. You can type it in to the date, the calendar itself.
Yeah, so you can quickly punch in that date and then put in your month and then boom.
Cool.
Yeah. So the key is maybe just making sure you just quickly select the year.
All right, thank you very much for that question, Tiffany. You stumped me. I was stumped. Jessica Engel asked, then I wait to see who does not fill out a family update to archive that. That must have been in reference to something else. I apologize, Jessica. I have forgotten what that was in relationship to. Philip said, awesome. I just set up a smart group for male as the only criteria. Now we can use it to message all men, only for men's activities. Yes. Yep. Philip, that's exactly what this stuff is for. Perfect. Nathan, prospects and visitors may not want to create an account to simply visit the church, but may fill out a simple form with name, phone, and email to visit, such as a plan your visit registration form. Yeah, that's what the Add My Family form is. They're not creating an account anywhere.
Well, I think what Nathan's talking about is more so your connection card.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. And in that case, like you definitely, your connection card, you want it to be pretty low friction anyways. And a lot of times when it comes to connection cards, I see a pretty popular method churches use. So I'll just go to my Church Connect to show you real fast. So get connected, and we'll actually I'm going to open up the website because I want you all to see this here. So we're going to my church's website real quick, and then I'll just go to get connected. And so our connection card, it's super short. And the reason why is because we don't want there to be much friction. We want people to quickly fill it out. And so by asking their name, their email, phone number, and then, I would like to learn more about the church or speak to the pastor. And then from there, we can get that information and then act on it accordingly.
Good.
Yeah.
All right, a couple more questions. Anonymous asked, regarding the active and inactive status, is there a built-in system on ChurchTrac where if an active person is not active for a certain period of time, they'll be automatically given the inactive status? No. There's not a way to automate that. But you can record attendance in ChurchTrac and run reports on that, maybe every month or every quarter, whatever interval that you need. And then we even give you what's it called? Not an inactive. It's not missing persons. What is this report called?
Missing persons.
Missing persons. Yeah, like we're a missing persons unit. If you go to the events attendance, Wes.
Yeah.
I don't know why my brain is totally blanking on this. Reports.
Oh, absentee report, man.
Absentee report, yes.
Sorry. Yeah.
That's the word, absentee. I couldn't think of absentee. We will show you the absentees on the people screen. Don't even do the absentee report, Wes. Just show absentees on the people screen. And the reason why this would be better to do it this way is because when we go back to the people screen, then you can, you got to have that criteria, yeah. Then you can quickly do a bulk edit on those people. So you can check all those names and then mark them as inactive.
Yeah.
Easy. Easy. We make it as easy as possible. All right. Thank you, Anonymous. Toyin, you asked this in the chat, and now you asked it here in the Q&A. Is there a way for ministry teams to communicate with each other using ChurchTrac or Connect? Maybe a chat feature. There's not a chat feature. Yet. But the answer right now is no. But thank you very much for asking. Robert, how do I see which email addresses have bounced back and are no longer receiving notifications?
I could show you that. So whenever someone has an email address that's bounced, it's going to do a little slash through.
Yeah, strike through. I think I saw that earlier in the workshop.
Yeah, I thought I had one with that. Yeah,
there it is.
Yeah, there's one there. It'll strike through showing that, and you can create a smart list to see that.
Cool. Angie Franklin, I am trying to onboard our members. Did I hear you correctly that the Add My Family QR code is a one-stop way to do it? I don't need them to download the app and then build an account and then scan. Yeah, just do the Add My Family, Angie. That's literally it. Just have them scan that QR code or send them the link to that. It's a form, they fill it out, and you'll get a notification in the bottom right-hand corner of the people screen saying, hey, you have some submissions. Just click that and it'll take you where you can review what they sent. That's all it takes. You just, with a couple clicks of the mouse, they're added into the people screen for you.
I think the beauty of Add My Family, Matt, is that it's kind of this nice in-between of technology because, I'm going to be realistic here. Church Connect, your church app, a lot of churches are going to struggle with getting people involved depending on their church because you may have a lot of people at your church who's just not technological and they're not going to really want to use an app to do all these things, but you can at least get them to go to this form real quick to fill out their information to make sure that you have their updated info.
Yep.
And so it's kind of nice having that in between.
Yep. All right, Gustavo said, will participants in an open event count as users for charging purposes? No. Anyone can sign up and register for an event. They're not added to the people screen automatically when they do that. So you can gather signups for events without having to pay extra for that.
All right. Well, that is all the questions, I think, here. And we're at the point where we have got to head out. Y'all have been fantastic. We love doing these master classes because, it just gives us a chance to dive a little deeper. It is a challenge sometimes because we have to figure out how deep do we want to go in the software, but at the same time not being inaccessible. So hopefully for those of you who are newer to ChurchTrac, you didn't find this so incredibly over your head that you're like, man, I don't even know what they're talking about. And hopefully for those of you who have been using a ChurchTrac a while, you got some really good value out of this. I'm going to ask one ask of all of you before you head out. My email, it's weston@churchtrac.com. I was going to give yours, Matt, but I'll give mine. Weston@churchtrac.com. I would love just some feedback of just what you thought of today's masterclass. Let us know, what was something you liked about it? What did you not like about it? Or what did you think we could do better? We're always wanting to read that feedback and just make things more, better, awesomer.
Much more better.
Much more better. And just to reiterate, tomorrow we are covering messaging in our messaging masterclass. Matt, that one's going to be fun. We're going to dive deep into segmenting and all that cool stuff.
Love it. We're going to get real nerdy.
Oh, yeah. If you didn't think we were nerdy now, just wait. But you all have a great rest of your week. We'll talk to you soon.